Good morning. This is a marvelous, and I'm back bringing to you more alternative content to make you think, hopefully stretch your imagination, and hopefully get you and me outside of the not so good comfort zone that tends to tempt us to live in for so long. I really appreciate your attention. Today, I'm going to get a little bit more in depth in terms of the media and who controls the media. Now, purpose I'm doing this video for is because a lot of times we have a disconnect between those that put out the information on news and newspapers and radio and even on the internet versus what it actually is that we're picking up. It's like a wall or barrier that we don't associate with who exactly and specifically is responsible for handpicking what type of news that we see. And I think this is important because, like I always say, I think the goal for people is to be the best you that you can be, improve your quality of life, and overall have a pursuit of happiness and a wonderful experience that I think everybody in this country should have. And a lot of times that's difficult because throughout your day, I'm always bombarded with images and stories and things that just kind of take you off your game. And I call this living an organic experience versus living an artificial experience. A lot of times we think we're living an organic experience, but we're really living an artificial experience. And what do I mean by that? If you really sit back and contemplate, how often do we have our own original thoughts, right? If we watch TV, we see the news, we interact with society, our family and friends, we have our day-to-day responsibility and tasks. Most time we're preoccupied with things that we have to do, responsibilities that we have to fulfill. And a lot of times this is due to external stimulus from people and circumstance. So how many times do we actually have an organic thought that comes from us that's kind of independent from all of that? And I think that's important. If we was to take an analysis of all the thoughts that we have throughout the day, a lot of times we'll see that we're acting on or reacting towards experiences and stimulus that really are based on problem solving or based on us living based on a reaction versus something that is organically us. And a big part of that is because of news and media. So I wanted to do this video to kind of take down the wall of who exactly it is that's presenting us the information that we take as credible. So if you look at TV stations, radio stations, and things like that, print media, digital media, a lot of times these things are owned by small amounts of individuals, which means that the majority of the information that we are bringing into ourself, into our mind, body, and soul, is really coming from the control of a few people. So if that's the case, if the media and information that we're taking in is only presented to us by a small group of people, I pose the question of how objective and how wide a range can we really have presented to us if it's only in the small hands of a few people. So I wanted to kind of start a series where we look at who actually controls certain stations, certain channels, certain media outlets. This way we can start asking, is what we're being presented something that is organic, or is it being presented from the minds and benefits from other people that have their own agenda and not necessarily benefit us as the viewer? So today I'm going to highlight Sumner Redstone and the Redstone family. Now this is a very powerful family. For years, for a while, for decades, they have controlled a large portion of the media. And not just the large in terms of quantity, but in terms of the quality that we take in. So a lot of the images that we see, a lot of the shows that we see, have a huge impact on individuals because millions of people watch these shows and they tune in on a regular basis. So when we interact with people that are tuned into this, this now becomes the societal narrative that we're all subjective to, even if we don't want it to be. Now, this is a family that comes out of Massachusetts, Dedham in Boston. The patriarch was, the name of the patriarch was the father of Sumner Redstone. And they got their start not too long ago. And the original name was not Redstone, it was Rothstein. So the patriarch of this family was a Michael Rothstein. They were a Jewish family that came out of Massachusetts, that came out of Boston. And now the matriarch is Sumner Redstone. That's the one that's in charge. That's the patriarch now that's running this family. Now, this family, like I said, came out of Massachusetts, and they started actually with a theater, like a movie house. And that's how the story goes. They got their start. So fast forward, Sumner Redstone and this family, they own a lot of media right now. Right now they own CBS, they own Viacom, they own Simon and Schuster, they own Pocketbooks, they own Scribner and Sons, and they own 1,500 movie houses or movie theaters throughout the globe. 1,500. That's a lot. So here you have a family coming out of Massachusetts that controls one of the highest rating networks on basic television, which is CBS. And they own all of this through one company called National Amusements. And under this umbrella, you have CBS, Viacom, and these 1,500 theaters. So they own CBS and all of its affiliates, local stations. They own Viacom. Now, Viacom has been very crucial to the programming of a generation, I guess you could say, that's 40 and under. Under VH1, you have BET, you have Spike, you have VH1, you have MTV, you have Nickelodeon, Teen Nick, Logos. So these stations alone are responsible for lots of broadcasting that pretty much captivate the minds of a lot of people. From that, you have Love and Hip Hop, which has done a lot in terms of how people are influenced in terms of programming. So if all of these stations and all of these programmings are coming from the ownership of one family, a person would pose the question of what kind of theme or images is being presented from this one family, and why is the predominant theme always the same? The reason why I bring that up is right now, and none of this is bashing in any way, I'm just presenting something just to think. In the last few years, you notice that there's been a heavy push for a lot of LGBT, homosexual awareness and things like that. And it's to the point to where it's like a heavy inundation with it. It's like a bombardment of it, you know? Even if you don't want to see it, it's all over. And this wasn't really the case 10, 15, 20 years ago. Everyone knew it was present. People accepted it. Everything had its lane. But never was it really in your face and presented in such a way where you feel like you're being pushed towards dealing with it, even when you're not ready to. So one large reason for that is because of this family, the Redstone family, Sumner Redstone. Around 2004, this gentleman, Sumner Redstone, was in a earnings meeting where he was talking to investors. And he was expressing his regret that he didn't create a LGBT or gay channel sooner, because he said that a channel like this would be very lucrative. He said that it would only take about $30 million to invest, and it would yield at least $1 billion. So this is interesting. Now, mind you, this individual was Jewish, and the Jewish faith does not align with homosexuality. So one would ask, what would make this man of Jewish faith push something or establish something on a mass level when it goes against his faith? And the only reason, two reasons I could think of, is greed and control. Primarily greed. So it just goes to show you that the images and messages that we see, it's not about education or upliftment. It's about programming, and it's about greed. If this individual, Sumner Redstone or Sumner Rothstein, who is Jewish can go against his faith and launch a channel that is against his faith, that goes to show you what we're really seeing. We're seeing stuff that's being forced on us and pushed on us for an agenda that's separate than the common person or the person that doesn't have wealth or a lot of riches. Now, this was shown some years ago when a channel was launched called Logos. Logos is under Viacom. Now, if you notice, in the last 10 years, it wasn't as big as it was in terms of this push for LGBT and things like that. But in the last maybe 5 years, it's been huge. It's been an explosion. And a lot of that is because of the Redstone family. They, through Love and Hip Hop, through VH1, through a lot of different channels that they own, CBS, I think the number one television show on basic television is on CBS, and I think in real life the main character is gay. So this makes you ask yourself, is this something that's organic, or is this something that has been pushed for an agenda? Has it been pushed to shape a certain way, and it hasn't been pushed for greed? Now I'm going to read a little bit about this channel, Logo TV, that is under Viacom with the expressed intent of pushing an LGBT agenda, which is something that has not been organic. If it was organic and this is something that has been called for, cool, but it was not. This was something that was deliberate because it would bring in a large amount of advertising dollars, and it would shape the minds of people to accept and address something even when they did not want to. Logo TV is an American digital cable and satellite television channel that is owned by Viacom Networks. From its launch up to February 21st, 2012, the channel focused on lifestyle programming aimed primarily at lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. Since February 21st, 2012, the channel has now, after it's been great success, shifted into other areas. So I read this to say that this is something that was not something that was organic. This channel was launched in 2005. And if you notice, from 2005 until now, the type of LGBT marketing that you've been seeing has been huge. I think it's been the biggest it's ever been. So if these individuals, this Redstone family, own CBS, Viacom, and 1,500 theaters across the world, it makes you wonder, how much effect does this have on the everyday person? That means that you can even have thoughts, or you can even address things, and you're not even aware of why, because you're approaching something from one central powerhouse, this family. So what is the agenda of this family if they're pushing these themes? It has to be for a certain purpose. So the reason why I wanted to make this video was to kind of get us behind the veil and to kind of get us to look at what's going on. Most of the channels that we see, most of the things that we come across, the news stories, they're presented to us for a reason. I'll give you an example. Right now, the big thing is police brutality and black men, things of that nature. In 2016, there was 136 black men that were killed by police. So I asked the question, if there was 136 black men killed by police, why is it that we only hear about a few of them nationwide? How is it that Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, why is it that these are chosen as opposed to other ones, right? Something doesn't add up there. Is it because these shootings were the most graphic? Is it because these shootings have the most captivating narrative? Are they the most glamorous? We don't know, because we're not familiar with the other 130 plus killings that were done by police. So the reason why I feel that that's important is because if certain individuals with certain agendas and certain mind frames have a certain path or objective that they want to accomplish, you have to start asking yourself, why are certain stories presented to us? What is the reason for that? I say it's to give you an artificial experience. It's to give you an experience that's going to take you away from the true value of what you have to do. That's getting into yourself, raising your family, and things like that. So If all of the outlets is only owned by a few people, it, the question that has to be answered is, what is the narrative, right, that these individuals want to instill in us? What is the overall objective of the news stories that are presented to us? There's a lot of attacks that go on throughout the world. There's a lot of other news stories that take place on a daily basis, but we only see the same type of narratives and the same type of stories every day. This has to be for a reason. I say the reason is the stories that we see benefit those that put the stories out there. Period. So when you see an excessive amount of push for LGBT, when you see an excessive amount of push towards terrorism, when you see an excessive amount of push towards crime and violence, this isn't a narrative that benefits the watcher. This is a narrative that benefits families, because families control the media. Period. If you look at the control of the media, of print, it's families. And this is why I suggest people get this, not this particular issue, but just this magazine in general when it comes out. This is the Forbes 400. This is a good analysis to see exactly where the control comes from. Because whether we realize it or not, the things that we do, the activities that we operate off of, a large part of that is not from our control, because that's where memes come from. We're operating off narratives and behaviors that come from outside stimulus. So we may be doing things that we're not even aware of, that the individuals that control the narratives and the media outlets are controlling us without us even being aware of that. So if we are aware of who is behind these stations and what their motives are and who these people are and what their background is, we get to kind of see what it is that's inside of us. Because when we watch a movie or we listen to a song, or that's downloading. So what is it that's being downloaded to us, whether we're conscious of it or not? If we get an idea of who these individuals are, with their faces, with their names, with their patterns, with their habits, then we get to kind of see what it is that is native to us and what's not native to us. You ever have a thought and you're like, where did that thought come from? Or why am I doing this? This is because there's so much stimulus going on around us that it kind of takes us over, and we kind of do things that's not original to us. So for that reason, if we actually put faces to these stations and who owns it and look at their background, you'll start to see that a lot of the information that we're taking in that's not native to us is coming from the minds and thoughts and feelings from other people. Other people that have so much money that the agenda for them is to acquire more money, more power, and more control, and to get us operating in ways that serve them as opposed to serving ourselves. So knowing that when you watch a CBS, when you watch a Viacom, and when you go to any of these movie theaters, you're knowing that these movie theaters, these publications are promoting images and themes that are simply to provide more money and control for those that run it. Another example, there's a documentary called Hidden Colors. It's an excellent documentary. But if you notice and you go to your movie houses, you don't see that. If you look at BET, VH1, anything with Viacom, you don't see any promotions for that. Why? Because this documentary is not in the interest of the families that run the media. So if that's the case, and we're giving our hard-earned dollars to that, we're feeding individuals and families that are benefiting them, and to have us is detrimental to us. So that's why it's important. So that's why I wanted to shed light on Sumner Redstone and the Redstone family, to take a look at CBS, its different affiliates, take a look at Viacom, and take a look at the different movie theaters that you go to. Instead of going to the movie theater, question, okay, I'm going to this movie theater, well, who owns it? Okay, and then when you see who owns it, you look at the biography of those that own it, and you look at their history, you'll start to see the mindset of these individuals, and you'll start to see how their mindset trickles down to us, and we're not even aware of it. We become passive receptacles for other people's ideologies. And the more we take part in that and interface with it, the more we become drones or artificial individuals, because we're living an existence that was promoted by people with other agendas as opposed to us promoting our own agenda. Because everything that you exchange money for and time for is either promoting you or promoting someone else, or it's mutual, or both. So take a look at that. We're always susceptible to other people's agenda unless we take control of our actions and our patterns. So with that, thank you for your attention. This was just a brief summary of the Redstone family, CBS, Viacom, VH1, BT, things like that. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for coming by. Peace.